sessions. So, hello everyone, welcome to our panel discussion today. FemTech, it's not a niche. FemTech term was coined in 2016 by Idatin, founder of menstrual app Clue, to emphasize the use of technology to improve women's health. We have a fantastic group of FemTech speakers today, but before introducing them, please remember to mute microphones. And dear audience, please share your questions, comments, additional viewpoints regarding the topic in the comments. We will do our best to answer them during the panel, but it's a quite short time. So if we can't, then after that, within this Slack channel as well. My name is Bene, CEO of Bene Studio, and I will be the moderator today. My company does HealthTech mobile and web application development and design. Our goal with our work is to improve the life of the users. And our panelists today are Lindsey Williams, co-founder of MyUTI, Missy Lavender, CEO of Renalis Health, Sophia, CEO and co-founder of Pandia Health. And now I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves in one minute. Who are you and how are you connecting to FemTech? First, I would like to ask Lindsey Williams.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm Lindsey Williams, co-founder of MyUTI, which is a digital wellness platform for women suffering from chronic urinary tract infections. And to me, FemTech is really about finding solutions for previously either underserved problems or female-specific problems, leveraging technology for this healthcare solution.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. And Missy?
Hi, I'm Missy Lavender. I'm the founder of Renalis Health, and we are in the space of pelvic health, so things below the belt, we like to say. And we're creating a suite of prescribed digital therapeutics, starting with a very common bladder disorder called overactive bladder. And I believe strongly that FemTech is an important word to be talking about because we know it's so underfunded, and I'm still completely baffled by that considering the number of female consumers in our space. So I'm thrilled to be creating solutions that can be used by persons assigned female at birth. So happy to be here today.
Yeah, thanks, Missy. And Sophia?
Hi, I'm Dr. Sophia Yen, CEO and co-founder of Pandia Health. We are the only women-founded and women-led, the only doctor-led company in birth control delivery. And we're building the online health brand that women trust, starting with birth control, but growing with women as they grow, adding on acne, prenatal, postnatal, and I'm of menopause age, so menopause. And I'm excited to be on this panel today because FemTech is absolutely not a niche. It affects 51% of the population. But as I like to say in my household, whatever affects me affects my entire family. So as they say, if mommy's not happy, nobody's happy. But FemTech is about taking care and knowing that there's a difference between XX and XY, and that we need to put as much research dollars behind XX as we do XY, and to know that things are different in somebody with estrogen, breasts, a uterus, a vagina, and vulva compared to somebody who is not. And so much more funding is needed that only 3% of VC are women or XX, and only 3% of the VC money is going to companies that are founded or led by women. And actually the numbers have gone down during COVID because people have circled their wagons around those who they are used to preserve them, and the opportunities are lost on the greater side. So we need more XX to step up and invest, but we also need the XY to realize that XX is a great investment. The numbers are there, the profit is there, and perhaps, you know, the person with an XX is going to provide better service than somebody who's XY, no offense, specifically with feminine issues.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, Sophia, I mean, I think it's important people recognize that the women's health market is estimated to reach over $1 trillion by 2027. So we're not talking about a small, market opportunity for any of these issues. And to your point, XX, females, we make fantastic consumers, and our expectations for how we expect to consume healthcare have rapidly changed due to COVID.
Yeah, thanks.
I have to piggyback on all of that and say that if you look long-term on ROI and female-founded companies, we tend to outperform our XY colleagues. So we're very careful with our money and are extremely excited about the opportunity to have people share that success with us.
Yeah, thanks. And what can be behind this situation? You all highlighted that there are a lot of potential in the female community and the FemTech industry itself, but why is it underserved nowadays?
Well, I'll take that as a first, because I've been in pelvic health and in women's pelvic health for 18 years. And it's a jump ball. I mean, first of all, a lot of the people that we pitch to are, to quote one of my investors, old white guys. And I'm talking anal sex with him. I'm talking bladder disorders, and he's like completely uncomfortable. So there's that part of it, right? And another person very early in my fundraising said, well, you're only talking about half of the population. Like, I want something that affects everyone. I went, wow, okay, that's only 150 million. And even no matter what you slice and dice in our space, it's somewhere between a half or a third. The numbers are staggering. But I think we've been so focused as an entity, you know, as a healthcare community on big population health issues, but we are not thinking about what's it like for someone if they have a chronic UTI or they're, you know, we talk about chronic leaking, bleeding, or pain. They're not present. They're missing work. Their relationships are suffering, so they're ending up in with anxiety, depression. They can't move, so they've got obesity. Then that leads to all the things you care about. So what I love about FemTech is we're kind of going to the root of the solution and helping kind of decrease some of these big population health issues. So
yeah, Missy, I'd also say not just looking at things that affect women disproportionately, right? Because there's a lot of that, there's a lot of opportunity, but even for those investors who say we want the whole market, what we see and what's been published is that the trends that apply to consumer product goods actually translate where women actually control 80% of the decision-making in healthcare for themselves and their families. So it's really, you know, you're not just getting half the population, you're getting 3/4 in terms of the healthcare decisions that are being made, if not more, across the board, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to only things that impact women, although that seems to be the trend. And I think a lot of that is born out of frustration that those solutions don't exist. And so, you know, we create solutions for them.
So basically we have 80% of people as a target, but due to lack of education or cultural reasons, it's not understood, not shown.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily lack of education as much as I think it's lack of experience. You know, from an investor perspective, people tend to invest in things they understand or they've experienced. And so when, you know, you're talking to an investor about a UTI, which disproportionately affects women, 85% of all urinary tract infections are in females, you know, it's really hard for them to understand the pain points as acutely as a woman who's experienced a UTI, which 80% of women have. You know, and so I think there's a disconnect there. You're not only having to overcome all of the standard questions that, you know, investors ask you, but you're also having to basically justify that this is actually a real problem in a way that I don't think most other areas of healthcare have to do.
Mm-hmm. So the women perspective is not represented that much how it should be.
No, and I think that goes back to what you know, what was quoted earlier, is that less than 3% of venture capital is female, and it's not you know, coincidence that less than 3% of funding goes to female-founded companies. So you know, Sophia, I'm sure you have more thoughts on that, but I think there's a strong correlation here.
Yeah, no, I'm in the heart of Silicon Valley. And whenever I pitch, how many of the founders are women? I'm almost, like if it's your traditional tech pitch, I'm the only woman in the room. And also on the physician side, I think that a health company should be run by physicians, somebody who has taken the Hippocratic oath, do no harm. As long as I'm CEO of this company, we will always tell women what's best for their health, even if it doesn't benefit our bottom line. But the discrepancy is exactly as Lindsey said. When I go to pitch the pain point of running out of your birth control pills and freaking out that you might get pregnant or you might be bleeding when you don't want to bleed, somebody without a uterus can be sympathetic, but they really haven't had to bleed once a month for 1 week out of 4 for 30 years of their lives. Those without uteruses, I don't think you realize what it's like to be randomly hit with blood 1 week out of 4 for 30 years of your life. You probably think it always comes at Tuesday at 8 a.m. No, it comes randomly. And we always have to subliminally have to think about, do I have a tampon or a maxi pad in my purse, in my backpack? And then the shame of it. And I've seen comedians talk, it's great that if men had periods, they'd be like swinging their tampons around and saying, who has the bigger tampon? But we're all like, yeah, we gotta hide it. Even me, a crazy feminist, going to the bathroom, hides it in my, sleeve or in my purse, or, instead of just, this is part of life. And there is just not even equality in the bathroom. So my phrase is, wherever there's free toilet paper, there should be free menstrual products, because it's about equality and dignity. But mainly the example I give is I try to pitch Pandia Health, birth control delivery, and the 70-year-old VC is like, how hard is it to get to the pharmacy every single month? And I was like, you try to get to the pharmacy every single month in the prescribed 7 days, no greater than 7 days ahead, Monday through Friday, and work and pitch VC and run your company every single month for 30 years. And then I can always pitch, no offense and sexist stereotype, the executive assistant that checks me in and gives me the bottle of water. But when I try to pitch the VC, they like, well, let me check with my wife. Then they ask their wife and they're like, I love going to the pharmacy. I just stay home and I go to the pharmacy. And it's like, that's not your typical woman. And they don't, is this really a problem? And yes, it is. They would much rather invest in a new golf tee or a luxury men's label, which doesn't affect 100% of the population. That affects the 1%, or some crazy coffee or crazy juicero, right? This is 51% of the population. It is huge. And we are becoming friends at Pandia Health with those people that control 80% of the health decisions. And our plan is to be their friend for life. Pandia is, Pan is every, Dia is day. We want to be with you from your first period throughout your entire life. We want to be the one you come to when you have questions about your health, because you can trust us.
Yeah,
thanks,
I would say
thanks,
if I had a penny for every time someone had said, do you even need to treat a UTI? Can't you just drink cranberry juice and they go away? I wouldn't need to fundraise. So it's quite the paradox of trying to explain these pain points in a way that makes sense and resonates. And to your point, Sophia, I was at the bank the other day and had a 30-minute conversation with the teller about her chronic UTIs. And that's not something that you have a regular conversation with a group of male investors around the table. And I think it's really unfortunate that more credence isn't given to the data that exists around this. I mean, MyUTI as a platform has engaged with over 40,000 women and educating on chronic and recurrent UTIs. And of the women that we've surveyed, 75% of them are frustrated with their care because they feel dismissed, not heard by their physician, and they want a different solution to get resolution for their symptoms, right? So there's a strong frustration in the marketplace in general of the expectations for, frankly, a system that was built by men for men. I mean, if you look back historically on the rates of women being included, even in just basic research, it's really disappointing, right? And so I think this almost represents, and I think it's been referenced before, as like a fourth wave feminism movement. But equality in healthcare is huge. And that's really, for me, what FemTech represents is this opportunity to have equality in healthcare, to have solutions and systems that are designed for my body as a female, and what that means in the very specific, menopause, menstruation, bladder issues, those types of things that affect women disproportionately in a way that serves my lifestyle as well.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. And Missy, you also faced similar misunderstandings regarding exact topics, what Lindsey and Sophia both mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's ad nauseum more of the same, but I think what's interesting about understanding that conditions like UTIs, birth control is, women and menstruators, as we like to say now, because, now that we have, a good awareness of trans health issues, but, things below the belt affect, unless you don't have a uterus. I mean, there's a lot of conditions that affect both, XX and XY, I like that we're using that. But we've always struggled with this concept of prioritizing FemTech, prioritizing women's health. When I started, we have a related nonprofit. When I started that 20 years ago, people were closing down their women's health practices in major hospital systems. And God forbid you were in menopause, like nobody wanted to go there. And finally, we've got, we should be able to capture this rising tide of awareness that, oh, by the way, if you live long enough, every XX goes through menopause. UTIs are a huge problem. The number one reason for a doctor's visit in the US, overactive bladder, stress incontinence, chronic bleeding, chronic pain. I mean, these are not only large when it comes to numbers of patients, but the dollars. I mean, overactive bladder is $100 billion annual spend. I mean, most of that direct. That's obscene. It's obscene because there's so many non-invasive things that we can do to help patients. But to circle back to, I think Lindsey was talking about the healthcare system, what we've always heard from the patients is, they bring up these topics, and it's kind of first of all, they're really embarrassed to do so. Leaking, bleeding, chronic pain, those aren't very sexy. And they're minimized in their importance by their providers often. So they'll bring them up, they'll get it just, well, you just had a baby, you're a woman, you're fat, you're old. I mean, literally, these are direct quotes. And then that's it, especially if you've got, in certain cultural populations, where it's very stigmatized, the patients then go really underground. And it's why when they show up in specialty care, it's so advanced. So what we're working on right now with university hospitals and in general at Renalis is we're really targeting the primary care providers, because those are the people that should be screening for UTI, that should be having, family care is also birth control. In our space, all of these conditions should just be on the screens, but they're not. And part of the reason is the providers are like, I don't know about Botox. I can't do anything with that. So we're, our digital therapeutic, a version of it is really targeted on giving them something very simple that they can give to a patient. And if the patient needs something else at the end of 8 weeks, they can refer out. So there's a lot of elements to making FemTech solutions effective in the market and getting people to pay for them.
Yeah, thanks, Missy. And it seems that that you collected a lot of obstacles which we should solve somehow in FemTech. But can you mention a few good examples where change already happened or at least started?
Say they can change in
FemTech, where we can see good examples which we can follow.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is recently, back to the menopause discussion, I've loved watching people like Genevieve, who came in as to your point, both of you talking about education starting as one of your missions, and then pivoting in 2020 to telehealth. And I think they've done a really good job. People like Joylux has done a great job of elevating sexual health issues. Help me out, Lindsey and Sophia.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is this dynamic of telehealth and accessibility really, I think, changed the game. I mean, FemTech Focus Research published a report this last year that showed that in 2020, we actually had 21 female unicorns, which was, I think, almost triple the previous year. So it's amazing to see how this opportunity or go-to-market strategy of accessibility, convenience, ease, access, that's really it, is access, has really shown itself in the market. And we see these transactions happening. The most recent one I can think of is a company founded by Hallie Tecco of Rock Health, called Renalis, which is a fertility-focused company that was just recently purchased by Everly Health, which is $1 billion valued company founded by a woman, Julia Cheek. And it's kind of the first time that I've really seen that female network, because Julia and Hallie went to Harvard together, right? So it's like all of a sudden now we see this opportunity for that same kind of, women supporting women coming full circle. And I think, the reality of it is that women are building the companies of the future. And so investors need to take note, invest early and often.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. It's really great to see that there are good examples. Sophia, what can you recommend as a good practice to follow?
Yeah, no, I've been lucky to have been invested in by several forward progressive men. My major investors are men. And so I think the new generation of 40 to 50 somethings are more open, more in touch. And if you show them the numbers are convincing. So look at the numbers, don't look at, is this something that personally affects me, or run it by your significant other, but look at the numbers. And the women's organizations that have been backing me and supportive are Springboard Enterprises out of New York, amazing and great for women founders. Julia Cheek and I were the same cohort. And so lucky to have met her through that. And then the other one that's been really good is Stanford StartX. They aren't focused on women, but if you have a Stanford affiliation, then you can get in, but they also have a 10% diversity. So anybody who's female, people of color, underrepresented, people from different ethnicities or backgrounds, you can apply. It's a free program, and it's an amazing group of supportive people. In terms of investors, Precursor Ventures is great for B2C, and they're one of our investors. And then Electus Capital is a new rising fund. They just started their health investment fund, and they're based out of New Zealand, Australia, and they have been absolutely supportive as well. So, and also wanted to give a shout out for SheEO. So SheEO is a nonprofit where people that are XX, I don't know why they don't take XY money. I would take money from anybody who wants to donate or invest, but from XX, you donate $1,100. They gather 500 of you, which then puts together $500,000. And then they vote on what 5 companies they want to distribute that money to. And then those companies receive roughly $100K tax interest-free loan that you pay back over 5 years. But that's a great start for anybody who needs to raise money, and you just have to have some social benefit.
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. We discovered the obstacles, the opportunities, and also a few of the good practices of FemTech. And what I'm really curious about is what would you recommend if someone would like to design a new solution directly for women? How to approach it? Lindsey, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that concept of education, education is empowerment in a lot of ways. I mean, from a user experience perspective, I think what we're learning about all consumers, but especially I think is most pertinent for females who, historically speaking, have a tendency to be doing a lot of things, right? I think there's plenty of data out there to show not only are we working the 60, 70 hours in the office, but we're also then putting in the additional time almost equivalent at home as well. That ease of use and access is paramount, and having a design platform or a user experience, designing a platform for user experience for women, I would recommend the most important thing is talk to a lot of women. If you, right? I mean, you've got to get that that baseline, getting an understanding of what the needs are, but then really focusing on education first, because I think that will guide a lot of what you need to have in terms of engagement and community. I think that's also something a little bit different that I haven't seen in platforms built for men. Looking at like Row, right? When it first started, it wasn't necessarily like a community. It was like, okay, hey, I need something. I kind of want it to be discreet because erectile dysfunction is not something I want to talk about. Whereas I feel like women are the opposite, right? Like women want to talk through these issues that they're having. They want to understand other people's experiences. It's more community based. And so I think that's an important factor to consider when you're designing platforms for women. And I've personally used Pandia Health, and I'll tell you, like, the little extras made a difference with like the little candy that comes. It's like just like small pieces of joy, right? For something like ways to elevate the everyday experience with just a little nice extra touch makes a big difference for a consumer and feeling connected to the company and to the brand.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. And Missy, what can you add to Lindsey's point, how to design for women?
Yeah, I absolutely, first of all, feel like you have to do a lot of conversations and across diverse populations if you can. So we were lucky to do ICOR's national program and interviewed 143 people in 7 weeks. And what was interesting about that is our entire business model changed. So we were starting out on a DTC basis, and now we're going directly to providers. And we've migrated over to the digital therapeutic side, the prescribed digital therapeutic side. Now, having said that, we've also got a DTC platform that we were asked to build. So we're looking at how do we bring that to market. But community is really important. I also think when you're designing a platform as a business model, you really need to be clear on how are you going to get paid. And we should all be looking at exits. So, you know, our goal at Renalis is not to be the next unicorn or IPO, quite frankly. I've done investor relations for 2 public companies. I have no interest in doing that. But what I do want to do is I want to develop across a platform of products in our space and then sell to some of the bigger digital therapeutics in our world. So really understand who is your customer, who is going to pay you. And then the UI UX, absolutely 100%. It's got to be easy to use. It's got to be make sense. It's got to actually deliver, you know, value to both your users and your customers. And then long-term as a business, you know, where are you going to be able to exit? I think we have to keep that in mind. It's so pitched when you hear men, again, gender normative here. When we hear guys pitching out there, they're always like, yeah, and here's the exit center space, and and it's going to be 100 times, you know, EBITDA or whatever. We never do that. I mean, I never do that, and I've added that slide, but you know, that we made this point earlier. I just have to circle back to it. One of the things that I think is interesting watching women and men pitch, and there's a lot written on this, is we are very careful. Like I have had to like up my game when it comes to bragging, because I want to be real. I want to tell you what I know. I want to tell you, you know, very methodically how we're going to get there. Guys, sorry, gender, again, normative bashing here. Men are like, it's going to be amazing. It's the next best thing. And it may be, but I think that's maybe one of the reasons that women like investing in women-owned companies, because I don't know, just wanted to throw that into the mix.
No, I think there's a higher degree of confidence. I know when we first started pitching, I got feedback from one of our advisors who said, I think these numbers are not large enough. And I said, but these are numbers I know I can hit. Like I am super confident about these numbers, right? And he said, yeah, but what you don't understand is investors assume that you've inflated them. And so they then discount them. And so by the time he's doing the math, he's assuming I've inflated. I'm assuming this is like my real number. And I do think that that's an impact and probably does contribute to some of the reasons why the justification for not funding female founded companies can be made.
So you have to adjust your tactic to tailor it to your actual audience.
Yeah, I think it's more of, you know, and this is quoted often that, like, you know, again, generally speaking, men will apply for a job that they're like 70% qualified for. Women will only apply for a job they're 100% qualified for. And so I think we, to a certain extent, there's a trend that that women need to, be a little bit more blue sky and get a little bit more comfortable with some of these numbers that may not be realistic to achieve, but to investors are what they want to see.
Wow. And Sophie, what could you add to Mrs. and Lindsey's points, how to design for women?
I think that it is really important to have women's input and that you need to have a woman in the C-suite. And I do think having a product for women by women is going to be a better product than for women by somebody who's never personally experienced the problem. The example I give is, as a pediatrician, before I had children, I was telling parents all sorts of crazy things like, let them, and I believe in it too, but it's a lot harder once you've gone through it, is let them cry it out. No big deal. Just, walk away while your child, flesh and blood, is crying in the other room. And I'd be like, suck it up and just cry it out. Be a parent, not a friend, and easy to say if you've never had a child. Right? Or like the mammogram still needs to be improved. Anyone who's gone through the mammogram, it is for the men out there who haven't been through it, or for those of us who have yet to do it. My friend says that you have to turn your head while they're squishing your boob. And it's like, who can't design a mammogram machine where I don't need to turn my head? Like, why do I have to turn my head and squish my boob? And why are we squishing boobs when we can do ultrasound or MRI? Or there's a new company called Celebrea that I've made friends with, where you put on stickers and they're going to check the temperature difference between your breasts, which I think is crazy cool. But it is a guy lead, but there is women on the team as well. So having a woman as the CEO or the CTO, even better yet. My friend Lioness has, I think, one of the few women CTO, as well as Dame, MIT connection, that's making the product for women, by women, tested it herself. I mean, when the CEO or the CTO has personally used the product, I think the product's going to be better. So I think we just need more women, not just as chief marketing officer, not just as HR, but actually running the show and, get that opinion, check your advisory boards. Like every time I look at boards of companies, even Apple or some of the more progressive ones, there's like, ooh, we have 10% women. 10% women, I want to see 50% women or 80%, because we do all the purchasing. Women buy far more than men, even fashion, makeup, etc. Who runs all these companies? It's shocking. The fashion world is run by men, but who does all the buying? Women. So we need to, I think when you make a product, no offense to the XYs in the room, it would be really important to have XX somewhere in your C-suite and not just as marketing and HR.
Yeah. Thanks, Sophia. And last question, because we are close to the end of this session, but it's a really exciting and a really useful discussion. So last question is, what do you wish investors knew or understood about FemTech? Lindsey, you already highlighted something. Can you share it?
Oh yeah, I said, we're building the companies of tomorrow, so invest early and often. But really what I think investors I wish they knew is that just because something exists as a status quo doesn't necessarily mean it's good enough, right? And I think Sophia brought an excellent example with mammograms. Another one is urine culture, which was created in 1881, and it's still the standard for diagnosing UTIs, and it's wrong 50% of the time. So another example is like the speculum, which was invented 100 years ago. Like there's so much room for opportunity when we're getting new iPhones every single year, and we have so much in the area of women's health that has opportunity for improvement, for innovation, it is truly a blue sky market. And I think that, if people could understand how blue sky that could, the potential is, then they would see a lot more excitement around investing in these companies.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. And Missy, your final thoughts, what you wish investors knew?
Yeah, just piggyback on that. I think that it's also important to understand that the world is different after COVID. And so companies like all of ours that are looking to deliver solutions. We talked about access, we've talked about ease of use, we've talked about changing really the therapeutic model to more telehealth with support. That's what we're looking to do. That's our pathway at Renalis. And I think for people to understand that get in and get early, I love that, Lindsey, is really important, because the trends are not going to slow down, especially when you look at the millennials, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody wants solutions. Everybody wants it in the middle of the night or whenever they want it. So I think it's really important to look hard at these companies for everything we've talked about today.
Thanks, Missy. And Sophia, what's your final words?
Everything that Lindsey and Missy said, and the future is female. We are 51% of the population. We live longer. We control the spending dollars, and the market is huge. The market is real. And if you're smart, you'll invest in it.
Thank you, Sophie. And thank you very much for our fantastic panel today, Lindsey, Missy, Sophie. And we will have our next event next month, November 18. Please don't forget to place your written introductions and your asks in the I'm Looking For channel in Slack if you haven't done yet. And keep in touch before the next event as well. And for more HealthTech Networking Club news, please follow Bene Studio on social media. See you in November. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.